Hi everybody, Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. Today we're going to talk about bullying. We're going to talk about mobbing, which is something I've never heard of. And we're going to talk about how you can create a culture of respect. Which I don't know about you, but I myself try and be the best person I can, and anything that we can do to get rid of bullying and create a culture of respect, I think is a great thing. I've got Lorraine with me today, and Lorraine, tell people where they can get hold of you.
All right. So the best way to reach me is through my website, conflictremedy.com. I have a blog post, information about me and my services, and you can get an article about the high cost of conflict if you sign up. I'm
So you've
also on LinkedIn.
so you've got Conflict Remedy on your name, so it's that, isn't it?
Yes,
So Lorraine, you actually had a really bad experience of bullying, didn't you?
I did. Yes. And yeah, and it was not fun, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone. And for me personally, it did end up in me having a new beautiful career in conflict transformation.
But I think it's great, isn't it? I just love the fact that you from the phoenix rises from the ashes, where you had this terrible situation in terms of bullying, and you suddenly saying, right, I'm going to make sure that I'm going to learn, and I'm going to make sure that other people learn from that as well.
Yes, absolutely. And when you're in the middle of it, it does not feel good. But I'm sort of on the other side, and um, although it's not the main focus of my work, I have absolutely written about bullying and mobbing and work with organizations to help them see what it is and how to avoid it, and work with individuals. Sometimes I consult who've been mobbed and bullied, because it's absolutely awful, and it's terribly prevalent. And there's more awareness than there was years ago, but still not enough.
Mm. I've worked with bullies in the past. I used to, when I worked in corporate, I worked in a matrix organization. So you may work for people, but you don't have a line report to the individual. And there was one particular person who was a particular bully, and I had to say to my line manager, if he says these things in meetings again, I'm not going again.
Yes.
Luckily, actually, we're going to talk about this. What we did was that a number of us talked about it outside, and we decided to do something about it. And
Good
we
for
did do
you.
something about it. And actually, that individual, because if anybody looks, try and works things out, that individual is no longer a bully, and actually is a really nice person.
Yes. One of the things that I've come to understand is we can talk about bullying behaviors. So we don't have to write someone off as a bully, past, present, and future. A lot of people who are bullies don't even realize that that's how they're coming across. There
Mm.
are malicious people, but as in the person you're describing, once they realize what they've been doing and they don't want to be that person, they can step by step learn to be a lot.
I mean, he is now in my top 3 inspirational leader people that I've
Yes.
worked for.
Isn't
And
that
that's the
wonderful?
transformation from, actually explaining to him, do you realize that when you do this, I feel like that. Oh no, I didn't know that. So anyway, so before we go down, which is not about me, this is about you. What's the difference between conflict and bullying?
It's a really good question. And I created a 12-week program at Sonoma State University for working adults on conflict management. And one of the weeks is on bullying and mobbing, because people get very confused about conflict and bullying and mobbing. And I know in my own particular situation, it was written off as interpersonal conflict, or you just don't get along. And I think the main there's a lot I could say. I have 3 hours worth of material on this.
Yeah, we've only got 15 minutes
I
now.
know. But the main difference is that interpersonal conflict it's going both directions. You know, you did this, you did that. It's equal opportunity, if you will. Whereas bullying is an assault by one person on another to try to destroy them, harm them, diminish them, personally and professionally.
Yeah, I remember what someone did was that there was a particular person they didn't get on with. There was a big presentation, so they said, "Give me your slides, and I'll put them into the main presentation." Of course, what happens? You poured the slides in, and all the things moved. So when this person came to present, all the slides were wrong.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And is that conflict? I thought that was bullying.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I said, is that conflict or bullying? I'd say that was bullying.
Oh, absolutely bullying.
Hmm.
Yes. Yes. Trying to make someone look bad. Yeah.
Because I mean, this isn't in organizations, there will be people that don't agree with us, and they don't agree with the strategy or don't agree with what they need to do, and we have to have conversations with people. That's different. Challenging someone is different from bullying, isn't it?
It very much is. And I'll just say right now that mobbing is bullying by a group.
Okay.
Where it's just one person bullying you. It's a whole group of people making you a scapegoat. And there's a number of different reasons why people get bullied and mobbed. And some of it has to do with being different. If there's implicit bias, if you're the only woman, if you speak with an accent, if you're a person of color, if you're LGBTQI, if you're transgender, all of those can make you a target, especially if you're not trying to keep it a secret. If you're a proud woman or a proud lesbian or a confident person of color, people who don't know how to deal with this will see you as a threat. And then the other reason that people get bullied and mobbed is that if they're super competent, if they're really trying to hold the organization to the mission they profess to hold, but the people in this organization really don't want anything to change, then you're perceived as the enemy.
Yes. Yeah, and I worked in an organization where we moved from selling one way to another way, and the whole of the organization had built their careers on the old way.
Yes.
And as soon as we tried to do anything to move forward, they basically whispered into people's ears about how bad it was.
Yes. Yeah. Most people really don't want to change. I mean, and that's true whether they're bullies or not. And they have to have support. They have to feel safe, and they have to be willing to look at their own stuff, their own biases, their own limits, their own shadow spots, if you will. And when people don't want to do that, they don't want to change in any way, then they try to put it off on someone else and blame them.
So how do we recognize it?
If there's conflict, if there's difference, you have to listen to what people are. Okay, here's the first thing. There's bullies, there's the people who are the targets, and then there's bystanders.
Right.
So part of it is educating people to move from being bystanders to upstanders. So that, people kind of know when something bad is happening, when someone's insulting someone or cutting them off, but they don't know what to do about it. So when you start educating people about everyone, you started by talking about a culture of respect. Everyone deserves, here's ground rules. We speak to each other with respect. We listen to ideas. We don't try to undermine someone else. We don't badmouth people. We speak to them in a professional way. And when people understand and understand the manifestations of bullying, It could be like the thing you described with the slides being left off or leaving people off an email list. It can be saying things about them that aren't.
I remember doing a course, and which would have been an early type of Tony Robbins course, or whatever. And I remember being told that sarcasm was bullying, and it is.
Yes, yes. And if you, the origin of the word is a Greek word that means to rend or tear flesh. And when you know that, then it makes it clear that it's not a good
and it often is a surprise to people that use sarcasm as a, people like to make people laugh, but it's quite often strange for people who are sarcastic to realize that actually it's a form of bullying.
Yes, and it has to do with contempt. If it's gentle teasing or making jokes about things that are just funny, that's one thing. But if it's to cut someone, to undercut them, then it is an aspect of bullying.
And often, certainly in how do I get this? How do I explain this? In many places, people then turn that around and say that's banter. But what you actually find that the word banter now is quite often understandable is things that we've done in the past which actually hurt people.
I didn't catch the word you used.
Okay, banter.
Oh, banter. Yes. Yes.
My English accent, sorry.
Oh, yeah. No, it's fine. Yeah, that whole thing of, oh, well, I was just joking. You say something deeply insulting or hurtful or racist or whatever, but I was just joking. That's not banter. That's insult.
It's not banter, it's racism.
Exactly.
So one of the things that we can do, so how do we make sure that we recognize it? You've gone through the things that we need to be saying in terms of these are the ground rules and that. What else can we be doing certainly as leaders and as individual contributors?
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing is to educate yourself about what bullying is and be aware that it happens far too frequently. It undermines the workplace. It cannot be allowed. And so when you do training for everyone, that helps. So they recognize it. Then you have to have policies and procedures in place for people to report it, for how to deal with it, for how to stop it from happening. And there has to be more than one way to report it and get support. Because if the person you were supposed to report it to generally is the head of HR, for example, and they're the one who's the bully, or it's your manager, that doesn't work. So there have to be multiple ways. It has to be a real commitment on the part of the whole organization to not allow it to happen anymore. And I do think also that it's every bit as important, as you mentioned earlier, to educate the bullies as well, because most people think they're being a strong boss, or they think they're just being tough, and they don't realize the kind of devastating impact that it has on someone else and how it undermines their productivity as well as a harmonious kind of environment.
Yeah, I think that we've become far more understanding in terms of mental health, and the fact that while we bring our best selves to work, there's loads of things going on behind the door, like life goes on behind those doors, and we can be worrying about those things, and there are, we need to make sure that we're getting that balance, because we're not all the same, thankfully.
Right. And I want to say that the ultimate outcome of extreme bullying is death. People have committed suicide. People have committed homicide because of extreme bullying. And the kind of injury that it does to people, they've done brain studies, with MRIs and everything, is the changes in the brain from bullying and mobbing are the same as the changes from sexual assault or physical assault. And so I think that a piece of it is helping the leaders in organizations take it seriously, of how deep it is and how important it is to stop it.
So how can we become, how can we move from being bystanders to upstanders? How can we become an ally?
Yeah, so great question. So there's first is, recognizing the bullying, and that feeling of discomfort means there's something wrong happening. And then there's a lot of simple, practical strategies that people can use. And I actually teach these in my class. Sometimes it's as simple as going over and standing next to the person so they're not alone facing the brunt of this person. It can be something, well, this is more of a subway situation than work, but if someone's haranguing someone because they're wearing a headscarf or whatever, you engage the person who's being attacked in a simple conversation and ignore the other person.
Good idea.
That's one, and reporting it. But I think a lot of people have good hearts and they're just afraid of doing the wrong thing. They don't know what to do.
So let's say we're in a meeting, and we're under pressure. It's quarter end, or we may be in accounts, whatever, and tempers are fraying, and someone does something bullying. What as upstanders should we do or say?
It depends on who said it and what they said. If they cut someone off, for example, we can't pay attention to that or right now. Then someone else can say, I actually think that for us to complete this, we need to address this issue. And Sandra was right when she said, blah, blah, blah. So that's a kind of intervention and amplification, it's called, where someone says something important that's ignored and you say it. And I think also you can say, I understand we're under pressure, but it's really important. We're all doing this together. It's really important that we treat each other with respect. So that's a different kind of intervention. And then there's also talking to people afterwards, not the person who, I'm so sorry that she always cut you off. You talk about rules of how you can prevent that from happening. And you talk to the person who did it and say, I know you were just worried about getting the work done, but this is not helping if you're in a position to do that.
As quite often the person, well, if you don't want to hear what I'm going to say, I'm not going to say anything.
Right.
So it's it's dysfunctional. They just withdraw from the whole thing. Whereas, we have to hear everybody, because we know that diversity and lots of different opinions. You go, I never thought about that, Sandra. Yeah. That's great. We never thought about that.
Yeah, one of the things I teach more with the conflict transformation is that creative conflict from people expressing different ideas, when you have a diverse team, et cetera, you come up with much more powerful and more creative solutions than if everybody's in lockstep. And so that respect for people and enforcing it, I guess, really pays off in terms of what an organization or a corporation can accomplish.
So I've looked at looking at my notes, I've written the word toxic down. Is there anything that you would say was different around toxic or toxicity and bullying?
Well, I think bullying is a form of toxicity and toxic people. And I think that one other thing I didn't mention, when you're in a toxic environment, for people who are being bullied or mobbed or want to support people who are, you have to prioritize self-care, going outside the organization and remembering how good you are at things, getting psychological support. I started doing a trauma-informed therapy, PTSD work, while I was still at the organization, because I knew it was taking a toll on my health.
Mm.
So that toxicity, and I think, well, I don't know this for, I don't have any statistics. I don't know this for sure, but when there's a toxic work environment, it's hard for me to imagine that bullying is not part of it.
Yeah.
Because that's such a way that that toxicity manifests.
Yeah. Lorraine, it's been so interesting talking to you. It's a fascinating subject, something that I've seen firsthand, and I think most people probably have in organizations. Like lots of things, I think we're aware of it, but we've got a little way to go in terms of eradicating it from the workplace, or from maybe the home place or whatever. Lorraine, thank you so much for this. So remind people where they can get hold of you.
People can find me at conflictremedy.com, and you can contact me through the website. And I have a compilation of my blog posts about bullying that I'd be glad to send people if they're interested, if they want to sign up.
And I've been to your website to do the research on this, and it's this stack's there. If people are interested and want to and get an understanding, maybe they're being bullied, or maybe they think they're a bully, and they just need to make sure that they want to tick some boxes, and it's a great resource in terms of finding those things. And of course, they can talk to you.
Yes, and thank you so much for highlighting this topic.
Hey, you're welcome. I try and find interesting people, and you're interesting. You've got an interesting subject. I think this is something that we all need to learn. And if people can learn from this, and we can educate people, and this helps, then isn't that good?
It is so good.
Lorraine, thank you so much for coming on, and I hope people have watched it and enjoyed it.
Thank you so much.